Welcome. Welcome to our Christmas carol service by Candlelight, with a little bit of assistance. This is the third Sunday of Advent. A welcome to those of you here with us in the church, but also to those joining us online on Zoom. It's lovely to see your faces, or at least what I can of them. And it's been lovely to see those of you arriving online too. I'd like to welcome our pianist this afternoon, Sian, who has stood in at short notice, so I'm very grateful to her for playing for us today. And we look forward to sharing some festive magic, some singing and some celebration together. And I'd like to open with some words by Howard Thurman. Do come in and find a seat wherever you can. There's a few spare ones down here. I will light candles this Christmas. Candles of joy despite all the sadness. Candles of hope where despair keeps watch. Candles of courage where fear is ever present. Candles of peace for tempest-tossed days. Candles of grace to ease heavy burdens. Candles of love to inspire all my living. Candles that will burn all year long. Words by Howard Thurman. And we are going to be lighting candles. And I'm going to begin by lighting our chalice candle, as is our custom. It's a symbol of our free Unitarian faith. And may this flame be a symbol of the spirit of Christmas for us all. The light that dwells within each and every one of us, even in the darkest of days. May it shine ever more brightly and warmly at this festive and holy time. And now I'm going to invite those of you online, if you'd like to light a candle at home, please do so. And we have some candle elves this afternoon who are going to light our various candles around the room. So if you would like to do that now, that would be lovely. Thank you very much. So yes, please, Christelle. Of course, blowing matches out when you're wearing a mask is quite challenging. beautifully. Thank you. And as the lights flicker and shine, we are going to come into a time of prayer. So I invite you to join me as we let our hearts and minds join together in the spirit of reflection and quiet and meditation. Let us breathe deeply of peace in this quiet place. May we relax into its warmth and its light, knowing that we are safe here. And let us open our hearts to the story. Like the wandering couple, may we find that our greatest trials issue forth from our greatest joys. Like the harried innkeeper, may we find ways to be of help to others. Like the lumbering beasts, may we be silent witnesses to the unfathomable glory of life. Like the shepherds on the hill, may we know that we need never be afraid. Like the journeying wise, may we always have the courage to follow our stars. Like the angels, may we cry peace to a troubled world. Holy One, to these prayers for our own transformation, we add our prayers for all those who suffer and grieve today. May they find comfort. And for all those caught up in war, may they be safe. And may this season of peace and goodwill nudge our world towards its ideals, for then will Christmas truly dawn. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so it's time for our first carol. And our first carol is number 85, O Little Town of Bethlehem. It's a well-known carol, I'm sure. You know, whether or not you know all the words, I don't know. If you have bought a torch and you need to use it, please feel free to do so. If you don't know the words and you can't see them either, then please hum along. You are allowed to stand and you are allowed to remove your mask if you would like to sing. That's entirely up to you. But we're going to sing now, O Little Town of Bethlehem, number 85.
Silence, stars above.
It is lovely to have the piano. We're going to have our first two readings now. The first one is going to be from Luke chapter 2, verses 1 to 7, and it will be read by Sheila. And that will be followed by a story called The Innkeeper, which Anne will read for us, and it's by another Anne, Dilenschneider. I thought I'd say that to spare you, Anne. But we'll hear from Sheila and from the Gospel of Luke.
In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David, called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged, and who was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for her to deliver her child, and she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in bands of cloth, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn.
The Innkeeper isn't part of most nativity sets. No one sings carols about innkeepers. There don't seem to be any paintings that include them, but we can imagine the scene. Bethlehem is crowded with people coming home for the census. It's late at night when the innkeeper responds to a knock on the door and finds a young couple standing there. The woman is very pregnant. She and her spouse look exhausted. They've walked 100 miles over rough, rocky terrain to get here from Nazareth. The innkeeper is confronted with a dilemma. The inn is full. There just isn't any more room. At the same time, the innkeeper knows that offering hospitality is part of being God's people, because they had been sojourners and strangers in Egypt. That's why the innkeeper has always made sure there's an empty chair for an unexpected guest at the annual Seder meal celebrating Passover. What to do? As a child, the innkeeper had learned the story of Abraham and Sarah welcoming 3 strangers into their home. After they made the strangers a lavish feast, the couple discovered their guests were messengers or angels sent to bring great news. As laughable as it seemed, the elderly Sarah was going to have a baby. So the innkeeper knows the tradition of entertaining strangers. The innkeeper knows that strangers are messengers, angels from God. Tonight there is a bedraggled and weary couple on this very doorstep. What to do? The innkeeper pulls the door to a bit, hastily assessing the situation. Is there any space anywhere? The beds are all taken. There are even people sleeping on the floor. What to do? Is there any possible solution? In a moment of inspiration, the innkeeper remembers a stable out behind the inn. It's not much, but it is some protection from the wind. No matter how bitter the weather may become, the heat from the animals will keep these guests warm. The innkeeper flings open the door and welcomes the couple with a broad smile. There's not much, but there's a possibility. A stable. Will it suffice? It does. And the innkeeper saves the day.
Thank you to Sheila and Anne for our readings and a slightly different take, perhaps, on the traditional view of the innkeeper, rather. It's time for our next carol, and now this is to a familiar tune. In fact, the tune is In the Bleak Midwinter, but we are going to sing words written by Ralph Brown, which he calls On This Circling Planet. Now, Ralph, at 99, is our oldest member. He's not able to be with us in person today, but I am hoping that he is joining us on Zoom. In fact, he is joining us on Zoom because I can see him. Hello, Ralph. And I know that Ralph's been reminding himself of the words and is going to be singing along at home with this. So let's join with him as we sing Ralph's interpretation of In the Bleak Midwinter, which he has called On This Circling Planet, and the words are on the sheet in your books. Thank you, and thank you so much, Ralph, again, for writing those words and for sharing them with us and for being with us this afternoon. Our next readings are going to be read for us by Crystal and Viv. Firstly, we're going to hear the next stage of the story from the Gospel of Luke, and then we're going to hear, again, a different take, perhaps, on the story, or at least an offering of another take on the story by one of my fellow ministers, Kate Brady McKenna, who's a minister at Bury Unitarians. But first, let's hear from the Gospel of Luke. Crystal, thank you.
Luke chapter 2, verses 8 to 20, New Revised Standard Version. In that region there were shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. Then an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone round them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid, for see, I am bringing you good news of great joy for all the people. To you is born this day in the city of David a Saviour, who is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign for you. You will find a child wrapped in bands of cloth and lying in a manger." And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace among those whom he favors." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go now to Bethlehem and see this thing that has taken place, which the Lord has made known to us." So they went with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the child lying in the manger. When they saw this, they made known what had been told them about this child, and all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds told them. But Mary treasured all these words and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, as it had been told them.
They say a story can carry a truth far greater than the literal truth. We know the value of stories. We know they carry truth. We know they carry more truth than just the plain truth ever can. Maybe we can't believe a virgin gave birth to the Son of God, but we can believe that all births are miracles, worthy of celebration and of wonder. Maybe we can't believe angels brought revelations, but we can believe truth can be revealed through the actions and words of those who dare to speak it and to act it. Maybe we can't believe the angels sang to shepherds, but we can believe that those revelations about life can come to and through even those we think are the most humble. Maybe we can't believe the wise men travelled to see the newborn baby king, but we can believe that we should never be too lofty or think ourselves too clever or too rich to see the wonder and the majesty in tiny things. Maybe we can't believe that Jesus brought back the light by redeeming our sins, but we can believe in a leader and teacher and prophet who brought and brings illumination to the lives of those who wish to listen. We can believe in the light. Always we can believe in the light. Maybe we can't believe the Christian story, but we can believe in it as a story which points to a truth greater than we can possibly imagine. And so we are here at Christmas, celebrating, and long may we do so.
Thank you, Viv and Crystal. It's time to sing again. And on the other side of the sheet that you were singing from, you will find the words to Silent Night. And yes, let's go ahead. Sorry, I confused you. Let's sing Silent Night. And let's go from that very gentle, beautiful carol into a time of silence, a time for your own thoughts and reflections, prayers, meditations. And after a couple of minutes, we'll have some music from the piano. Thank you. When I think of the nativity scene, of course, as you would, I think of a newborn baby in a manger and a family in a stable on hay with donkeys and oxen and sheep around them. And it always feels blessed. Poor, yes. Simple, yes. Outcast, even. But always completely blessed. It's easy to romanticize, of course. I know that it wouldn't be great having to give birth in a barn. But this is a story, and it's written this way for a reason. And I think we're meant to notice that the family is homeless, that they have nothing except what they're carrying. But even so, they do, in fact, have all they need. They are, in fact, being looked after. They are safe. They are sheltered. They are blessed. This huge story in the Christian calendar remains so deeply symbolic, even for those who don't believe it. It's so very powerful, I think, for many reasons, but partly because it depicts an image of God in the world as the tiniest, most defenseless, most vulnerable soul, and yet one that is nevertheless fully alive and utterly radiant with love and hope and promise. The scene glows with light and with spirit. And even before the wise men arrive with their gifts, the family already has enough, more than enough. They have everything. They have each other. They have peace. They have a roof over their heads, however humble. And they have God. Our own Christmases were necessarily quiet last year, and maybe they will be again this year, who knows. Of course, no one wants to have a lonely and joyless time at Christmas, separated from those they love. And the unreasonable expectation we seem to collectively load onto this season, and onto the day itself in particular, can make that separation feel worse than ever. But what can lift a potentially gloomy or difficult Christmas is, of course, not more food than you can eat, or a succession of wild parties. Let's not even go there. It's not a stack of extensive presents, even if all of these might be enjoyable and diverting in the short term. What lifts Christmas is what in the end lifts any other day. It's the warmth of the holy within us. It's the gratitude we feel for what we have. It's the connection we sense, whether that's with family or friends, or on a bracing winter walk in nature, or by tuning into other voices from around the world on the radio, or feeding birds in the garden, or calling on a neighbour, or volunteering for a charity, or whatever it might be, and whatever you might do, that reminds you that you are part and parcel of this weird and wonderful universe. And that however little each of us may have, there is enough, and we can always give of ourselves. Maybe the nativity scene might remind you of your family and the love of your children and grandchildren or great-grandchildren. Maybe it reminds you of your friends and their warmth and their loyalty, their compassion. But I wonder if it might even remind you of yourself, of your own heart, and the beautiful, bright spirit that lives and breathes and glows within you. Whatever Christmas looks like for you this year, I invite you to think of the nativity story, this unlikely and miraculous story which we're still telling, as though it were your deepest self. To imagine the newborn baby as your own beating heart, the halo of light as your spirit glowing, as the entire scene as depicting your vulnerability and yet also your extraordinary resilience in challenging times. May it remind you at this dark time of year and this uncertain time in our lives of your enduring, precious and intimate connection with the divine, with the animals, with the sky and the stars above us, with strangers, the lowly and the kingly. And most of all, may it be a symbol to you of your own limitless potential to love and to give and to nurture life. In other words, the potential to be the very breath and hands of God in the world. May it be so. Let's sing again. Our next carol is number 90 in your hymn books this time, not on a sheet. It is Hark the Herald Angels Sing, number 90 in your hymn books. We're coming now to our final two readings, and we're going to close with a poem by UA Fanthorpe, which I know is a favourite of many of us, and we had it actually at the poetry group only last week, but I'd already put it in the service and I like it, so I'm having it again, which is BC AD. But before that, we are going to hear a story from Margaret Silf's collection of wisdom stories called Christmas Lights, and I think this might be a message for us all. And Myron is going to read it for us.
Christmas Lights by Margaret Silf. The whole country was deep in gloom. Nearly half the people in one small town had no work. There was a mood of sadness and hopelessness everywhere. Christmas was approaching, but there was very little money to buy gifts or festive food. And then came the final straw. When the townsfolk started to assemble the traditional Christmas lights to decorate the streets, they found the lights were no longer working. At first, everyone turned to the mayor. Our Christmas lights aren't working. What are you going to do about it? The mayor summoned the town council to a meeting. The Christmas lights have failed. What can we do about it? There's no money available to buy new lights, they told him. We are barely surviving. There's nothing left over for luxuries like that. And the mayor told the people the bad news. And at first the people were angry. They wanted to complain to the mayor and protest to the town council. But eventually they too could see that there was simply no money. And that was the end of the matter. And then the Christmas miracle began. A few of the townsfolk gathered together. I'm an electrician, said one. Maybe I can fix the lights. And I have an axe and a saw, said another. I could fetch a big fir tree from the forest and place it in the town square. And I have a long ladder, said another. But I can... Sorry, I've lost myself. And I have a long ladder, said another. I can help put the lights on the tree. I'm no good with technical things, said another, but I can bake. I will make mince pies for everyone. Oh, another one spoke up. In that case, I can make hot chocolate for all the children on Christmas Eve. And I will make mulled wine for the grown-ups, offered the innkeeper. And so it happened that the town celebrated Christmas that year in such a special way that no one who was there would ever forget it.
Jill?
This was the moment when before turned into after, and the future's uninvited timekeepers presented arms. This was the moment when nothing happened, only dull peace sprawled boringly over the earth. This was the moment when even energetic Romans could find nothing better to do than counting heads in remote provinces. And this was the moment when a few farm workers and 3 members of an obscure Persian sect walked haphazard by starlight straight into the kingdom of heaven.
Thank you both, Myron and Jill. It's time for our last hymn, which is, sorry, it's not a hymn, is it? It's a carol. It's number 95 in the Green Hymn Books, And it's O Come All Ye Faithful. And I know we're slightly breaking with tradition because we're singing all the verses today, even though it isn't Christmas Day today. But we won't have a service on Christmas Day, so let's do it this time. So number 95, O Come All Ye Faithful. Do be seated. Thank you. I think you did very nearly raise the roof. So traditionally, I don't know if this is really a tradition as such, but we don't normally have notices at the end of a carol service. So we're not going to today either. We do have some traditions, you see. But I would like to offer some thanks. I'd like to thank Sian for playing wonderfully for us this afternoon. I'd like to... I'd like to thank all our readers who read beautifully for us this afternoon. And everyone involved in setting up the space, because I know Christina and Thelma and Rob set up the beautiful Christmas tree, and our team yesterday who helped set up the space here, and our team in the kitchen who's setting up the mince pies and mulled cider from Delphine, I think, and Anne and Thelma busy with kettles and whatever. Thank you to all of them. I'd like to thank Christine for the flowers, and these are also particularly in memory of Camilla, a friend of the congregation who sadly died earlier this year. So those are in memory of her. Of course, I want to thank Myron for managing the tech once again, and also managing to combine that with reading. And also to Poppy, who has been managing things unseen to us, but not unseen to everyone on Zoom, and to everyone joining us both on Zoom and here, for making it a lovely and special afternoon for us all. Have I forgotten anybody? Put your hand up now. Oh, thank you, Sheila. Thank you. Yeah, to everybody. So let's close with a blessing. And the blessing is written by Maureen Killoran. Tonight, in this community, we have shared stories, sung carols, opened our hearts to the beauty of music. Tonight, we have turned to one another, lighting each other's candles in the dark. Tonight, we have dared to hear a message of hope, spoken once again against the challenge of the world. It is now time to depart, to go forward, to our lives and to the world. May joy be your companion, whether you are with others or alone. May love be your strength, and may the gift of community dwell in your heart. For here in this place you will always be welcome, whenever you choose, whenever you need. We're going to hear some closing music, and then I hope as many of you as would like to will join us for tea, coffee, mulled cider, mince pies in the hall next door. Thank you once again for sharing this Christmas time, this holy time with us.